It was one of the rarest scenes in international protocol history. The red carpet replaced with red rose petals. June 4, 1959, at Rinus Airport near Tirana, the farewell ceremony for Nikita Khrushchev, the head of the Kremlin, marked the end of a 10-day visit to Albania. From the terminal building to the Soviet government aircraft Tu-114, the path was covered entirely with red rose petals, not a carpet. Miss Hoxha, the wife of Enver Hoxha, in her memoir My Life with Enver, recalled. Khrushchev was the leader of a great superpower, whom we received as a friend, with honors, even excessive ones, to the point of absurd servility. Lyri Belashova, who directed the welcoming commission, spread red rose petals all the way to his plane instead of a red carpet. A symbolic gesture, and perhaps, a metaphor. Years later, in November 2014, during the exhibition, Khrushchev, on the 120th anniversary of his birth, at the Russian State Archive of Socio-Political History, RGASP, in Moscow, several black and white photographs of this visit were displayed, including the one showing Khrushchev walking over rose petals, followed closely by Belashova, while Enver Hoxha stood to the side, stepping on the bare concrete. The Soviet aircraft Tu-114, newly produced, had arrived from Moscow a day earlier with its famous designer, Andrei Tupolev, who came personally for its ceremonial inauguration by Khrushchev, a kind of rehearsal flight, before the Soviet leader's upcoming trip to the United States. For the visit to Albania, however, Khrushchev had arrived on May 25 with a Tu-104. At Rinus Airport, a large banner greeted him in Russian. Shatstlavogo Puty Dorogoy N.S. Khrushchev, have a safe journey, dear N.S. Khrushchev. It was the first time since the end of World War II that the leader of a global superpower visited Albania. Khrushchev's 12-day tour in such a small country, home to the only Soviet naval base in the Adriatic and Mediterranean, naturally caught the attention of the United States. In his speeches in Tirana, Shkodra, and Korka, the Soviet leader went as far as to threaten short-range rocket strikes against Italy and Greece, if they ever allowed American missile bases on their soil. For Washington, this visit was more than diplomatic, it was strategic. The Universal International News Network described it as Khrushchev's mysterious trip to Albania. But beyond symbolism, the visit revealed a deeper geopolitical chessboard. China was moving closer to Tirana, and Khrushchev, aware of Beijing's growing interest, held a private meeting with Chinese Defense Minister Marshal Peng Dehuai, who had arrived in Albania on May 28 at Hoxha's invitation. Two marshals, one Soviet, one Chinese, met in a country smaller than many of their provinces. Alongside Khrushchev stood Marshal Rod Ion Malinovsky, the Soviet Minister of Defense. Meanwhile, the French government, alarmed by this sudden Soviet-Chinese-Albanian convergence, recalled its own ambassador from vacation and sent him urgently back to Tirana. According to Enver Hoxha's own secret diary, Khrushchev's visit brought clear advantages. First, he wrote, "We hope that the Soviets will continue to assist us in developing our industry and agriculture, support we still need. And second, on the international stage, our enemies will be forced to respect our country's independence more than before." Khrushchev himself later wrote in his posthumous memoirs. The Albanians had often asked us to send a high-level delegation of the party and the state. We decided that I would lead it personally, and so we set out for Albania. The Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, in a top-secret report to the White House dated June 22, 1962, titled Soviet-Albanian Relations, 1940–1960, stated. During the first 6 months of 1959, Soviet-Albanian relations reached their peak. Albania gained extraordinary significance within the bloc. In mid-May, Albania hosted the 10th anniversary meeting of Comecon in Tirana, paving the way for Khrushchev's personal visit 10 days later. Khrushchev's stay in Albania, from May 25 to June 4, lasted longer than any of his other visits to satellite countries, perhaps to compensate for past neglect and to gain a clearer understanding of Albania, its leaders, and its problems. As for Radio Free Europe, funded by the U.S. Congress through the CIA, its internal analysis of May 25, 1959, the day Khrushchev landed in Tirana, echoed the same curiosity. Khrushchev's visit to Albania on May 25 is not merely interesting because it coincides with Tito's birthday, but also because it marks the 4th anniversary of Khrushchev's pilgrimage to Kanasa, in Belgrade, May 26, 1955. Is there meaning in this coincidence? It is tempting to predict that this may be more ill-omened than fortunate for the Yugoslav, revisionist, leader. The report continued. The anti-Yugoslav stance of the Albanian leadership has always been a key indicator of the state of relations between Moscow and Belgrade. When other satellites softened toward Tito, Albania remained rigid. Would Khrushchev now come to calm them, or to encourage them further? In reality, the Albanian archives reveal that Khrushchev's arrival followed a series of communications and conditions. On May 19, 1959, the Soviet embassy in Tirana delivered a radiogram in which Khrushchev demanded that neither side, Soviet nor Albanian, mention Yugoslav revisionism during his visit. Hoxha was furious, but pragmatic. He brought the issue before the Politburo, which agreed to accept the condition, reasoning that the diplomatic benefits of Khrushchev's visit outweighed the temporary silence. As Hoxha later wrote, "Let Tito and those who think like him deceive themselves. Once Khrushchev leaves, we will fire our batteries again against modern revisionism." Khrushchev arrived on May 25, 1959. The Soviet delegation laid wreaths at the Martyrs' Cemetery, toured the textile plant, Stalin, visited Butrint, and marveled at Albania's southern coast. In Butrint, Hoxha overheard Khrushchev whispering to Malinovsky, "What a marvelous place! We could build a perfect base for our submarines here. From this spot we could paralyze everything in the Mediterranean." Hoxha noted the words, and their arrogance, with visible irritation. The following day, at the villa in Ugiftot near Vlora, Khrushchev again whispered to Malinovsky, "What a secure gulf beneath these mountains! From here, with a strong fleet, we could control the entire Mediterranean, from the Bosphorus to Gibraltar." By June 4, 1959, Khrushchev departed Albania, leaving behind both applause and unease. In his farewell, he walked across the bed of red rose petals, while Enver Hoxha, on the side, stepped again on bare concrete. For Khrushchev, Albania had been a small ally with a strategic coastline. For Hoxha, the visit was a test, of loyalty, pride, and sovereignty. Behind the red petals lay the first cracks of a coming rift, one that would soon divide the socialist world. Another chapter uncovered. By the Black Folder.